Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunday morning at the sanctuary here in Austin, Texas. It's a beautiful day. It's a little bit cool today. It feels a little bit autumnish, and that's a good thing. Thank you for being here this morning. It's good to have everybody in the audience today. Dave, thanks for the virtual bottle of water. It arrived just in time, so that's going to come in handy. But it's great to see those of you who choose to chat. I love to see who's here. You don't have to chat, of course, but if you do have a YouTube account or Google account, you can sign in and chat with other members of the sanctuary family in the time before, during, after the service this morning. Two things I want to remind you of. One is that this Saturday is Halloween, but it's also the day daylight savings time ends. And that means you will get a whole extra hour of sleep next Saturday night. That means you should be here in plenty of time. You'll probably show up an hour early. Some of you will, but don't forget to set your clocks. Most of our clocks automatically do it now, but if not, you're going to get an extra hour of sleep. So everybody should be refreshed and ready for a good day next Sunday. Next Sunday, we will also, after this message, this part of the service, we will have our quarterly church business conference. It's required by our church bylaws that we do this 4 times a year. It doesn't mean that we got all this pressing business or bad news that we got to share with you. Nothing like that. It's just a requirement that we get together some way 4 times a year and bring you up to date with our financial situation, things that might be happening around the building or the grounds, anything else that might be worthy of sharing, new members, etc., announcements of importance. That will happen next Sunday morning. So we'll switch from a YouTube broadcast like we're doing right now to a Zoom conference where all of you will be on the screen. And it should not last very long because I say we don't have any earth-shaking business to transact. It's just bringing you up to date on everything that's happening so that you feel in the loop and part of the family. All right, I think that's all I got to remind you of. So again, let me just thank you for being here. Your presence means a lot to me. I couldn't do it if I did not see that there were people out there. It would be weird for me to just sit here and talk to an empty room, into an empty computer, and not know that some of you are out there. So thank you for being there. I feel your support. And it's an important time for us to band together however we can, even if it's just virtually like this. But let's get into the message. Let me ask you this. Why did you get up this morning? Why did you get up this morning? Did you get up to check the obituaries to see if your name was in there? Did you get up because you were so excited about another beautiful day of life? Things change in our lives as we age, as our life situation change. We adjust to things differently. At the age I am now, I get up in the morning because I'm awake. I'm awake 5:30. Always before 6 o'clock. I'm awake. Oh yeah, I could keep laying there for a few hours. It wouldn't do any good though. It's very unlikely I would go back to sleep. I just can't sleep late anymore. Now my daughter can easily sleep till noon or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock if she doesn't have to get up on a particular day. I remember when I was able to do that, but that's not me anymore. I can't do that. But I think each of us needs some reason to get up in the morning. What motivates you? Sometimes it's because we have a new job and we think, oh, I can't wait to get to my new job, or I can't be late. It's my first day on the job. And then 6 months later, we're reaching for the snooze button and said, I don't want to go to work today. Or maybe you get up excitedly because it's your first day of vacation, that vacation you've planned on and saved for so long. It's finally here and you get up ready, joyfully, excitedly to begin your vacation. What's your reason? What's your reason for getting up in the morning? You got to have one. There's a scripture that has always intrigued me. One reason it's intrigued me, it's not just in the New Testament, it's also in the Old Testament. It's in both parts of our Bible. So obviously it's noteworthy, it's important. And the scripture, which pops up in the Old Testament in the book of Joel, says this. Let me get out of the way so you can read it. In the last days, God says, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams, and your young men will see visions. Let me put that back up there for a second. Your old men will I'm sorry. It's not on my screen, so I got to look at it this way. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions, and your old men will dream dreams. Now, when I read that the first few times, dream dreams, see visions, what's the difference? What's the difference between a dream and a vision? Is there a difference? Aren't they the same thing? Well, I've come to realize they're not exactly the same thing. I've told you, visions, I think, imply sight on our part, something we can get a glimpse of. We say, I have this vision for my future. Visions are something we have some little glimpse of, but dreams, we largely have no control over. Dreams happen to us. Dreams invade our minds without us inviting them in. We don't usually have any control over them. I've told you in the past about some of the weird dreams I have. I started keeping a dream diary on my phone or my computer so that when I do remember them, which is not always, but when I do remember them, I write them down. And so I have a record of a lot of my dreams, and some of them are very strange. And I've told you how my daughter, when she was little, would always ask when I woke her up in the morning, did you have a dream last night? What was your dream? Because she found them so funny to hear about. But I also have recurring dreams. I have dreams that have popped up in my mind many times, not just once. And so I also have a note in my phone about recurring dreams. For instance, I have a dream that I'm outside in a big field. It's nighttime. It's very dark. But above my head, about 30 feet, there's an enormous spaceship or something that's slowly moving over. And it's too high to reach, but I can see it moving. It's all black, but the bottom of it has some very bright green lights among all these black shapes and pieces of metal. And it's passing by, and there are other people in this field, and we all have this sense of joy and excitement as we're watching this enormous thing go over above us. Now, I've dreamed that at least a dozen times. Why? I got no idea. I have no idea. I don't know what it means, but I enjoy it now. And I know when I finally was able to write it down, I thought, oh, I've had that dream a lot. Another one of my recurring dreams is I'm going into a large city like Houston, but instead of highways going into the town, it's like roller coaster tracks. And they all converge in different places. So if you're going to this one place, you have to get on just the right track to roll right up to where you're going. What does that mean? I don't know. I have no control over my dreams. But our visions, we can have some control over. Visions. What did you want to be when you were a kid? Isn't it interesting that our world is not just full to brimming with astronauts and firemen and ballerinas and nurses? Because when I was a kid, that's what everybody wanted to be, one of those things. When I was a kid, nobody ever said, I want to be a certified public accountant, or I want to be a software engineer. I don't think that job even existed when I was a kid, but nobody said that. Nobody had a vision for their future. That. What was your vision? What did you think you were going to be when you grew up? When I was a child, and I don't know where this comes from, very early in my life, but before I was even double digits in age, I had these showbiz dreams. And I don't know where it came from because nobody in my family was in show business in any way, shape, or form. Nobody had talent. Nobody was musical. Nobody had ever done anything on stage. And I don't know where I got that dream from, that vision from, but from the time I was a child, I wanted nothing more than to stand on a stage and do something and have people applaud for me. And so even before I was 10, 11 years old, I would go to the library and check out books on how to do magic tricks, and I would work on being a magician. And I would do little shows for my Cub Scout troop. Once a year, we would have a Cub Scout banquet, and a couple of years, I got to be the entertainment at that banquet. Not as Mike Robertson, of course. That's not a magician's name. I had read a book on magic, and it said, when you're coming up with your name for a performance, try adding an I or an O onto the end of your name. And I thought, Robertsoni? No, that just didn't seem right. Robertsoni didn't sound magical to me. But my middle name is Lindsay. And so I ended up performing as Linzini the Great. Now, Linzini's a pretty good magic name. And so I did magic up until the time I was 12, 13 or so. But then a new vision came to me. A lady in my dad's church gave us a guitar that she had gotten with S&H green stamps. I hope there are some people in the audience old enough to know what S&H green stamps were. They were trading stamps you would get at the grocery store, and you would take them home. If you spent $20, you'd get so many stamps. You'd take them home and lick them and stick them in these little booklets. And when you had 47,000 booklets, you could get a guitar or something that was worth some money. You had to lick a lot of stamps to get any decent prizes. Well, this woman gave us a guitar that she'd gotten with green stamps. You can imagine what a quality instrument that was with green stamps. It didn't even have a name on the guitar. It didn't even have a brand. But I started playing the guitar. And I would sit on my bed for hours with my Mel Bay chord book, learning new chords. Oh, how do you play a D minor? And I would sit there and I would learn songs. The first music book I bought was Hank Williams songs. And so I would sit there playing songs, and then I began to buy other music, and I would learn how to play songs that I actually heard on the radio. I could play songs that were on the radio, and I thought, well, this is what it's going to be. My mother would walk by my room and see me sitting on the bed, and she would say, if you would just work on your church songs half as much as you work on that stuff. I said, but Mom, I'm going to be a rock star. I'm going to be a star. It has to happen. It can't not happen. I was so sure I was going to be a rock star at some point. Well, but then in high school, there were other things that got into my vision, like acting. We did one-act play, and I was always in the one-act play, and I did very well. I won some awards for acting in our contest, our ULL contest. And so I thought, well, maybe that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be an actor. And sometimes I would sit in the bathtub rehearsing my Oscar acceptance speech, thanking everyone, saying how this dream began when I was a kid in high school in Agua Dulce, Texas. And here I am today accepting this prestigious award. Well, I'm a dreamer. I had all these dreams. Also in high school, I thought it would be great to write a book, to write a best-selling book. I didn't know how to write a book, really, and my English teacher, my high school English teacher, she had actually sent off for that course you used to see in the magazines that said, be part of the famous writers school. And they had sent her a big notebook full of lessons and plans and exercises. And she actually let me borrow the notebook from the famous writers school. And I went through it and I decided I was going to write my first book. My first book was 1.5 pages long. You probably didn't read it. You probably didn't buy it. It never did anything. It was 1.5 pages on notebook paper because I didn't know how to write a long story. I said everything I had to say in a paragraph or two. But still, I had this vision that, someday I'm going to write something. I'm going to write a book. There were other visions that would pop up from time to time, Maybe I should be an artist of some kind. Maybe I should be a comedian. What could be better than that? You don't even have to carry your guitar around with you. You just stand up and say funny things and people laugh and throw money at you. Wouldn't that be great? Well, what happened to those visions? What happened to your visions that you had when you were a child? I'll tell you what happened. Life happened. Life happened. And you realize after a point, very few people make a living as a rock star or an author or an actor or a magician. It's very hard to do that. And reality comes knocking, and all too often we say, my vision is not practical. And we set it aside and we decide to get a real job. Our visions don't always last our whole lives. They change, they dwindle, they grow. In the past few years, though, I realized something really significant. My vision of being a rock star or a magician or an actor or an author or a comedian, you know what? I've gotten to do every one of those things. Well, maybe not the way I pictured it when I was a kid, but I've gotten to do them all. I'm not a rock star, but I have stood on a stage in front of several hundred people and been one of the Beach Boys or one of the Righteous Brothers or Roy Orbison, and I've sung those songs and I've heard the audience applaud greatly. I know that feeling. I've acted in videos that got shown to hundreds and hundreds of people and even shown on television. I've written some books. I've said funny things on a stage and had the audience respond with laughter. In different ways, I've gotten to fulfill all of the visions I had when I was a kid. Not the way, as I said, not the way I might have envisioned them. God knew I could never be a rock star. God knew that if I stood on a stage and several thousand screaming teenage girls were screaming my name, I was not going to be any good for anybody after that. God knew I couldn't handle that. But he gave me a little taste of it so I could know, oh, that's what it's like. And so I've gotten to do them all. All of these different visions I had, I got to do them, every single one. And so then I had to arrive at this question, and maybe you need to arrive at this question. What do you do when all your dreams and all your visions have come true? Well, it's time to get some new visions then. What it's never time to do is to say, yeah, I'm done. I'm just going to coast to the finish line from here. I don't need any new ideas or visions or dreams. I don't need that. Yeah, you do. You need some new dreams. You need some new visions. There's a scripture in the book of Proverbs that says this exactly. It says, where there is no vision, the people perish. The Bible tells us if you don't have a reason to get up in the morning, you're slowly dying. You're slowly going to fade away. So if you've accomplished all your dreams, it's time for some new dreams. So what's a vision that's worth devoting your life to? What's a dream that's worthwhile? A lot of my childhood dreams seem really shallow and empty to me now. You know, I'm so glad I didn't become a rock star when I was 23 years old, because we know what happens to old rock stars now. They continue trying to be young rock stars. And so you see a guy in his 60s or 70s, and he's playing some little nightclub to a dozen people, and he's saying, no, I got a new album coming out that's going to put me right back on top. That's kind of sad because there's no new dream there. There's no new vision there. It's instead saying, I got to get back to my old vision, my old dream. So what is a vision worth devoting your whole life to? What is the one thing that is worth dreaming about? I want to show you a little clip from a movie I'm sure most of you have probably seen. It's from a movie called City Slickers. Billy Crystal is the star of this movie, and he plays a guy that's just kind of unfulfilled by life. And so he decides to recapture his joy in life. He's going to go on a cattle drive, which is led by the wonderful actor Jack Palance. And at one point, they have this exchange.
All come up here about the same age, same problems. I spend about 50 weeks a year getting knots in your rope, and then you think 2 weeks up here will untie 'em for you. None of you get it. Do you know what the secret of life is?
No, what?
This.
Your finger?
One thing. Just one thing.
That's great, but what's the one thing?
That's what you gotta figure out.
I love that scene because Jesus experienced the exact same thing, the exact same circumstance. The Pharisees, who were always trying to catch Jesus making a mistake that they could nail him for, they would always ask him questions, trying to trap him up. And they would say, well, what's the most important commandment of all? Because if he had said, well, it's number 4, or it's number 7, or it's thou shalt not kill, they would say, oh, the rest of them aren't any good? Is that what you're saying? And then they would try to arrest him for blaspheming, for decrying God's power. But Jesus always outwitted him. And when they said, what's the most important thing of all? They were trying to trap him, but he actually told them, he said, the most important thing of all, to love God with everything you got and to love your neighbor as yourself. See, they wanted a theological answer. They wanted something wordy and deep that they could pick apart and say, well, your theology is faulty here and you deserve death. They wanted theology, and instead he just gave them the truth. That's my feeling. I don't want theology. I just want the truth. Give me the truth, and the theology will take care of itself. So they said, what is the most important thing of all? And Jesus said, go to church every Sunday. No. Give 10% of your income in the offering plate. No. Memorize as many Bible verses as you can. No. He said, the most important thing is love. That is job one. That is the one thing. Later, his own disciples would ask him the same thing. They would say, what's the most important part of the message that you come to share? And he said, I'm giving you a brand new commandment here. I'm telling you, love one another as I have loved you. That is the one thing. Jesus said that's the most important thing. How have we gotten so far from that? How many churches are talking about this one thing? Oh, there's plenty of sermons today on every issue and controversy you can think of. Every sermon about sin or racism or abortion or women's roles or what kind of music to listen to or who to vote for. And Jesus said, this is the thing. This is the one thing you need to focus on. Accomplish this before you worry about anything else. Love each other. Well, why can't we do that? Why is that so hard? How do we start to do that one thing? The first half of Jesus' commandment is easy. Love God with all your heart. That's easy. You look around in nature and you say, God made all this? I love you, God. It's not hard to love God. Ooh, but loving you? That's icky. That's messy. That's a challenge. Why is loving our neighbor so hard? Well, Jesus said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I think that may be part of the problem because, folks, I don't know about you, but there are plenty of times I can't stand myself. I am so disappointed in myself, or I'm just so tired of hearing myself or watching myself do the same thing over and over again. And I think, I don't even like myself anymore. Well, it's no wonder then I can't love anyone else if I can't love myself. The thing that I need to remember is those times when I feel unlovable, That's all from me. I start thinking, well, I'm going to try real hard. I don't know if God loves me enough. I'm going to try real hard to be better. I'm going to read my Bible more and pray more, and I'm going to try to be nicer to people so that maybe God will love me more. Here's the news of the day. God cannot love you any more than he loves you right now. You got it all. You got the full dose. There is nothing you can do to make God love you more, but there's nothing you can do to make God love you less either. He loves you more than anything he ever made. God doesn't make matching sets of people. He doesn't say, oh, this one's a little off kilter. We got to start over. No, he loves variety. He has made billions and billions of people, and they've all been different. No two have ever been exactly the same. And yet, so much of the time we spend saying, I need to be more like him. I need to do more like her. And God is trying to say, hey, I made you the way I want you. I love you just the way you are. There's nothing God would change about you. He created you the way he wanted you to be. You can be in church your whole life and never get that one thing. When I was in high school, I mentioned UIL earlier. UIL runs all these contests for high school students. Everything from math to playing a tuba solo to acting in a one-act play to debate, anything you can think of, there's a UIL event for it. And I was big into UIL. I told you a few weeks ago, I did this thing called Number Sense, where you got 10 minutes to work as many of 80 problems as you can. I was good at math. And so one time my English teacher took 5 or 6 of us to the district meet at a different school. And I was doing Number Sense. And I got there, and Number Sense was the first event of the day. And so I was done by like 8:15. Well, everybody else had events scattered throughout the day. And I was stuck there, and I thought, well, what am I going to do all day? My English teacher looked at the schedule of events and said, why don't you do this one right here? I said, what is it? It was something called persuasive speaking. I said, well, how does it work? She said, you go into a room, you draw a topic out of a hat, then you have 30 minutes to work on a 5 to 7 minute speech. And the purpose of that speech is to persuade someone to think the way you do about this particular topic. She said, why don't you try that? I said, okay, all right. So I go in the room where persuasive speaking is supposed to start, and it's a room full of nerds. And I'm serious, nerds. I mean, there are these people that are wheeling in on dollies. They're wheeling in file cabinets full of carefully arranged manila folders full of articles from papers and magazines and their own notes for every topic you could imagine. And I'm there, and all I've got is a pencil from Number Sense. I'm not even sure if I had a piece of paper or not. I may have had to borrow a piece of paper. But I sit there. It was in the school lab, so I'm sitting at a lab table, and I draw my topic, and I look at it, and I think, well, what can I say about this? And I look around, and there's a guy at the other end of the lab table. He's got the file cabinet. He's working on stuff. He has a Newsweek magazine that's laying out on a table. And I say, hey, could I look at that magazine for a second? And he looks at me with great disdain because he sees I have nothing with me. He says, okay. And so I look at this magazine long enough to find a couple of statistics in it. And I gave it back to him, and I made a couple of notes. And then when my 30 minutes was up, I got up and I went into the room where you were supposed to speak to the judges and whatever spectators were there. And I delivered my speech. And I won the contest. I won district in persuasive speaking. 2 weeks later, I won regional. And about 3 weeks after that, I made my first trip to Austin, Texas for the state persuasive speaking meet. Now, by that time, I had a few magazines. I didn't have a file cabinet still, never went file cabinet, but I had some resources. And so at the state meet, I drew my topic, worked on my speech for 30 minutes, went in and delivered my speech, and I came in second in the state of Texas. Here's why. After the speech was over, I was out in the hallway, and one of the judges said, you know, you were very, very persuasive. He said, but you cannot persuade me that Vietnam is in the Middle East. See, it had been a question about the Middle East situation, and I had talked all about Vietnam, but I had been very persuasive. I had done what my preacher daddy said, when you're unsure of your topic, pound on the podium a little bit. So I pounded on the podium and said, my friends, we have to address this issue. Little knowing where Vietnam was, but I missed it by that much. But the thing I mean to say is, I also went to state in a writing competition. I'm good with words. I've written 4 books. I've worked on several others. I'm good with words, but I cannot express to you the joy of God's love coming through me and encountering someone else, flowing through me to someone else so they get their first glimpse of what it means to be loved by God. I wish I could express what that feels like, but I can't. You just got to experience it for yourself. So, what's my vision now? Well, my new vision is for a kind of a grace cafe. Grace cafe. And you come to this place, and the maitre d' says, pity, party of one. Pity, party of one. And they show you to a table, and your waiter comes over. No, not your waiter. Your server comes over, dressed in white, and doesn't say, what do you have? Instead, he says, what do you got? And you say, well, I have lied. I have cheated. I have stolen. I have betrayed trust. I have disappointed people who cared about me a great deal. I have not forgiven people. And you lay out everything you have done, and the server comes back and produces a big heaping helping of grace. And suddenly you're filled. You're nourished. You are satisfied. See, at the Grace Cafe, you don't say grace, you get grace. And when you try to pay, the server says, this one's on me. Grace Cafe. That's my vision. You know why it's a vision and not a dream? Because I've seen it happen. I know that it's real because I've experienced that kind of grace. Not because I deserved it, just the opposite. I didn't deserve it. And that's why God gave it to me, because that's what grace is. See, the Grace Cafe depends on word of mouth. Grace Cafe is open 24 hours a day. And it specializes in takeout. No, wait, let me rephrase that. The Grace Cafe specializes in party trays, so you can take it with you and share it with other people. I don't want to be a rock star anymore. I don't want to be a magician or any of those other things. Instead, I want to use those talents that God has given me to tell people there's a place. There is a place where grace is on the menu. Are you hungry?